On this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast, we are going international. We've been running all over the place looking for great adventures and things to share with you, our audience. And Seth just returned from British Columbia on a Freedom Hunters adventure where he went and represented Freedom Hunters and Houndsman XP. We are going to get all of the details on that. To say that Seth is wound up following this adventure is a gross understatement. They saw 65 bears in 5 days as a hunting group combined. It was an amazing event. It was an awesome opportunity for Houndsman XP and Freedom Hunters to take veterans on this hunting adventure in an awesome place. Seth is going to lay it all out for us. He's going to break down the hunt. He's going to break down the lodging. He's going to break down the dog work. He's going to give you his insights from a very new perspective about his impressions of hunting bear with hounds. It's going to be awesome. He's also going to give you the impressions from the veterans that went on the adventure. Guys, this is an important episode. It's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining. Lauren just got back from West Virginia, recovering from her culture shock of being in Appalachia, USA. And she is going to talk about the cultural differences between West Virginia and Wisconsin. We are going to get that dialed up for you in just a few minutes. But right now, I've got to tell you about this giveaway we are doing with Go Wild. We are pumping out the message on all of our social media platforms. But here's how it works. Go to your app store and download Go Wild, a social media app for outdoorsmen, for hunters, for fishermen. Anything you're doing outdoors is on Go Wild. It's where you should be sharing your content from your hunts and things like that. Nobody's going to bash you over there. Nobody's going to put you in Facebook jail. And yeah, I mentioned that other social media platform. You are not going to be a prisoner of the cultural war or giving away your data to someone who will sell it to people who will turn around and use that money against us, against hunters. But here's how it shakes out. Go to Go Wild, download the app. Set up your account and start posting on Go Wild. When you're posting, you will see an option to log time. That's where it's all going to happen, folks. You're going to log your time every time you listen to the Houndsman XP podcast. Every time you log your time, you are going to get an entry into this drawing. We are drawing for a Dakota 283 G3 medium kennel on July 1st. So from now until July 1st, you've got several opportunities to log your time. Every time you log your time, you're going to get an entry. So if you listen to 20 episodes between now and July 1st, you're going to get 20 shots at winning this Dakota 283. It's going to be shipped straight to your house. This is a $400 value just for listening to the podcast and using a social media app that supports your lifestyle. The Old South Dog Box is rocking. It's about to come apart. We cannot contain Seth much longer. Let's get the doors open. It's time to dump the box. All right, so we have no idea where Lauren is, as usual.
That's no mystery. That's no mystery there.
Where do you think she's at?
Probably running or scurrying frantically while yelling at dogs. Probably.
I'm thinking that's probably a good... I was thinking probably like she had been in the shower, and then she realized that she left the back door open. So about this time, she's running across the back field in a bath towel, totally wet hair, barefooted, yelling, "River!
Ridge!
Ridge!" Yeah.
It's probably not too far off. I think either one of these hypotheses is probably right on the money.
Oh, man. Well, we're going to do a point blank. We've been running all over the world. You especially, like, you had a huge trip to Canada for Freedom Hunters, and it was, I was worried about you. I was worried about you when you got started, but I think it all came together. And I've been down south, picked up another Yog Terrier after Krieger met his demise, and I've got another Yog now. He's got a little more hair on him. His name's Tough.
Tough.
And went down and got Burkholder up to speed, and then swung back up through North Carolina. And I got to tell you about, we're not going to cover all this on the podcast that I recorded with John Broadhurst, but that guy is a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he's written 2 books. He's carved walking sticks in the English. It's a custom in England, customary to carry a walking stick. And he's got, I don't even know how many he had, but he's got several wood carvings that he has cast in bronze. So he's got bears' heads, he's got beagles, he's got terriers, I think he's got some side hounds and things like that he's mounting on top of these things. Let me grab mine real quick. I'll show you my newest
badass.
He's crazy. He's wild.
He clearly has good tastes.
Yes. Hang on a second. I'm going to grab it. So this is my second one, and I'm going to try to hold it up here where you can.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
So that's a bronze bear head that he's cast on top of this walking stick. And then the band right here is a burled oak, and it's it was a the shaft on the walking stick had a vine wrapped in it, so it looks like it's spiraled all the way down. And I forget what he told me this was. I'm gonna have to ask him again. I think he said this one was a pair. It was a Carolina pair. So, and then I had to put a tip on it, and a 20 gauge brass tip. I just cut it down a little bit, and then cut the brass off of a 20 gauge shotgun shell and made a hard tip for it so that I didn't splinter or wear the end down too quickly.
Wow. So basically, folks, there's like a spiral groove running down the entire length of the shaft, and it's like embedded where this vine grew through it.
Yeah, it's deep.
Really
it's deep
red
too. Yeah. Yeah. So, and he's got all these, but then he's got hunting horns and different things there at his house, which he can blow. I recorded a little bit of him blowing some of the calls on a traditional fox hunt. And he was a huntsman in England. He was one of 2 red jacket beagle packs, and they ran beagles.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Maybe that'll be my next stop.
I want to go over there and witness that. And we talked about everything. We talked about everything from working terriers. That was kind of his gig. He's still got several Jack Russells, and he bear hunts with plots on the Carolina coast. He's in a hunting club over there. But John came from England about 25 years ago, in 98, I guess. 24 years ago now. So super interesting guy.
Well, probably a lot more interesting than me, but not as interesting as the person who just logged on.
Hey, there she is. She did
snuck
log
in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Lauren.
Just got done mowing lawns and breaking up dog fights. So
we were
I was
taking
close.
bets.
I was close.
Yeah. I had you pegged as like getting out of the shower and realizing you left the back door open, so you're running
chasing, trying to find dogs.
Yeah, the backfield with a bath towel and wet hair, yelling "Ridge, River."
It's probably happened.
Oh, I know it's happened. I've seen
it. I didn't have any dogs in the house for the last 5 hours today. So,
I'm actually
yeah,
pretty much. I'm actually sitting in the exact office that I first talked to Chris Powell to join the Houndsman XP team. Right here. This is a conference room. I'm kicking it on the exact same couch, except now I'm a lot more comfortable. When I was first talking to Chris, I was walking circles around this thing, and I probably burned a trail into the carpet doing circles.
Yeah, no doubt.
Coming full circle, coming from the great north, my big adventure with Houndsman XP. It's kind of surreal to be back in this little room talking
Lauren's
about it.
been on the road too. Let's get Lauren's story because the Freedom Hunters thing sets you've already queued us up. You're going to totally dominate the conversation, which is great. And because we want to hear all about it.
Well, my story is way less interesting. It has nothing to do with dogs. So, but it was nice to kind of get out of Dodge. Literally, I live in Dodge County, and see another place. And man, was it another place. I went to West Virginia, and I did not realize how ingrained Wisconsin culture was in my life until I got to West Virginia.
How so?
Can you?
What was different?
What do you think that means? They don't really drink there. So,
were you talking about
like,
Wisconsin level drinking or just normal American drinking?
Any drinking, like having a beer in the fridge at some point, ready for some time.
There wasn't any beer in the fridge?
And no, but that's okay. Like, that's fine. But there's just like not as many like restaurants, pubs, bars, whatever, like diners along the way, like just to like go in and socialize. Like, that's what little town people do, is you go to the local tavern and you have yourself a fish fry and you have a couple beers and you socialize. And there it's like, well, you gotta hike a mountain and go find some people in the woods, and that's that.
Are you kidding me? No, there are not taverns like you know of. Those are beer joints in West Virginia, and the ladies' auxiliary at the local church cruises by there to make sure to see who is at the beer joint, so that they can put them on the prayer list at the local church.
That's probably what it is. We did see like an American Legion, I think, or it was a VFW. I don't remember. It was one of those. And I was like, oh, well, that looks open. They probably have beer, but the parking lot was pretty empty.
Yeah. But no, it's a different culture. There's country stores. But in West Virginia and down this way, if you talk about when you told me the first time that you were going to the bar for a fish fry, I had this idea of, oh, they're having an event where they're having a fish fry, because when we have a fish fry, we invite friends over to our house. We've caught some fish and we're
like
having
a big outdoor
fish fry.
shindig.
Big outdoor shindig. And you're like, oh, I'm going to go get my fish fry. I'm like, you can get a fish fry?
This is when I told you, or just any Wisconsinite?
No, when you told me.
Oh, yeah. It's like a Friday thing, and you get, I mean, if you like old fashions, that's what you get, if that's what you're into. But Friday fish fry is a thing in Wisconsin, and it's like a lifetime search in order to find the bar with the best fish fry and the best ambiance and like everything put together. And if you ever find that in your lifetime, you've won the lottery. But you're always on the hunt for the place.
I've got a story about Geta that goes along with that, but we won't tell it now. But I'll tell it. We were on a search for the perfect Geta, and we traveled around to every breakfast joint in the tri-state area. And when we were on boat patrol.
What's a Geta?
Yeah, look it up. So it's a Cincinnati thing. It's like a German blend sausage. And we looked all over, me and one of my partners that I worked with, and we drove all over the tri-state. Every time we saw a place, a little joint, we'd stop and say, you got Geta? Yep, let's have some. And we found it, and it was right under our noses. It was right over here at Cross Plains Best Buy grocery store at Cross Plains. They serve breakfast. Best Geta I ever had.
I'm glad you got your Geta.
I did. See,
I need to try that.
Yeah, I'll send you some.
I ate more bear sausage in the last week than I have in my entire life. So there's my sausage experience.
Like smoked summer sausage and like cooked sausage and all the sausages you can handle.
Yes. Yes.
So Lauren, where did you go? You went over to Josh and
Rochelle Hedrick's area, neck of the woods, in Cabins, West Virginia. So it's kind of like in like the little like thumb part of West Virginia in the mountains there, and did a beginner's fly fishing course that was like all women, and enjoyed my time doing that. I think fly fishing is pretty cool. Another expensive hobby to add to the list. It's like everything I do, I want to keep going and doing. But yeah, so learned how to false cast and roll cast, and learned how to tie knots, and didn't tie my own flies, but I tied the flies onto my tippet.
Yeah.
I did not know what a tippet was. I was like, well, that just looks like fishing line. Then we got to go on rafts and float down the river and fish while we were doing that. There were some rapids. That was cool. Stood in the river and fished for a while. Just had some time talking with the ladies, listening to a girl strum her guitar, played some games.
Okay.
Did some
So
hiking.
who did you go with?
I went with my friend Allie.
Yeah. So you went with another hound dogger out there to see hound doggers, and
I didn't do any hound dogging.
No, none. No.
Yeah.
Because you borrowed a car, you stole your brother's car and drove out there.
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto. Just took it from Milwaukee and left the Tacoma back in the burbs, and took the car out there, which was a great choice. Saved a lot of money on gas. Was not anticipating all the tollways. And Chris was like, that's a death trap, when I texted him that Illinois can go somewhere else. And Indiana, I was saying. Indiana. Ugh.
Yeah, well, nobody drives on the toll road unless you've got an easy pass up in the northern. That's like the purgatory for every trooper in the state that gets in trouble. They send them to the toll road.
Oh.
And it was always horrible. And you get up by Gary and places like that, but there isn't any road that's worse than the toll road around Chicago. That place is horrible. And you're probably still going to get a bill for like $400 for driving on that third world road.
We'll see. I think we're going to end up spending half of what we spent in gas on tolls. So I think we spent around $200 in gas the whole time. And I'm pretty sure for the tolls there and back, it's going to be like $100.
Here's a public service announcement for anyone that's traveling from Wisconsin to anywhere east of Indiana. If you've got to go to Pennsylvania, stay off the toll road. Just drop down to Peoria, and then takes I-70 into Indianapolis, hit I-74 out of Peoria, Indianapolis, and then take 70 over to Columbus, Ohio.
He thinks he knows everything.
The whole way.
I told him that wasn't going to work. We were on a time crunch.
And you would have been time ahead by the time you spent sitting at toll booths.
We didn't spend any time.
Yeah.
But
I would never drive across the toll road. I
got to see my friend Brooke on the way back. We stopped in Medina. I had interviewed her, over a year ago. She's got the 2 blue English dogs that she rescued, and she's got the English pointers. Yeah. And so I got to visit her.
You recorded a podcast with her.
Yeah. Yep. So I stopped in to see her, got there at like midnight, and then we were done. We crashed, and then woke up and went to breakfast and saw her funny farm. She's got like 1,000 different kinds of like ducks and chickens and multiple horses and English pointers, like 3 of them. Plus she just got this little brown missile, a field bred, like UK bred Cocker Spaniel named Whiskey.
Oh, I thought he was a boycom when I saw pictures of him.
No, he is awesome. He is an awesome little dog. But yeah.
That's too much energy in one household. 3 English pointers. That's just crazy.
3 English pointers, 2 English coonhounds, and a puppy Cocker Spaniel.
As much as I like greyhounds, I sometimes feel that I'm more at heart like an English pointer. This just like high drive, frantic energy, just like zipping around.
But that's why you have your kind of dog to balance you out.
Yeah. Good inspiration.
Or else your house would be just like complete ADHD central.
They would never come in. I have one half bird dog. That is enough in the house. She's insane and has only 3 legs. You know what I mean? I had to slow her down somehow.
Yeah, well, Seth, this is your show, man. We even called it the Seth Bueller's Day Off trip. Roll with it. Tell us about that trip and tell us where you went and everything.
Yeah, so Freedom Hunters, Anthony Pace reached out to me, and obviously you did too. And about 3 weeks before, you guys were like, hey, you want to go to British Columbia? And I was like, is the sky blue?
Right.
Yeah, duh. So I made all that work out. First thing I realized is that international travel in the COVID era sucks. And it was very much a headache to get all my paperwork together. So guys, if you're planning on going anywhere right now, make sure I'm a total amateur at travel. This is my first international travel, even though I live like 30 miles from Mexico. To me, that's
You've never been to Mexico?
I have, but as I say, that's not like foreign travel to me. That's just like an extension of like my life, you know? And so there's not much difference between where I live and Juarez. Like it's just a rolling extension. Right. So, So make sure you have all your stuff figured out before you go. It was kind of a pain, but long story short, I got to Canada. First thing that surprised me is when I was going through the terminal.
Hey, we're not skipping over customs. I got to get the whole scoop because you were sending me these messages and you're like, this is horrible. I would never, if I had known this, I would have never come. And and
I was looking at those messages and I was like, this guy has no idea what he's in for. Like, it's really not that hard, but I feel like he's whining.
They're searching him. Body cavities.
The thing was that like this was all the complaining I did was even before I got to Canada and it was all COVID stuff, all of it. If there was no COVID stuff, it would have been easy. And I'm going to be very honest, and I'm just going to say it right up front. Getting into Canada was so much easier and more efficient than coming back to the United States.
Really?
Yeah. Their system is way more organized, way more streamlined, and makes a lot more sense. I'm sorry. I am Team America, but yeah, man, it was so much better going into Canada. So I got all my paperwork.
Let's think about this for real. I mean, you're from New Mexico. You're traveling to Canada for a few days, and you're coming back to the United States. I mean, they're thinking New Mexico, 30-some-year-old hippie. He's a tweaker. Yeah, there you go. That's what they were thinking.
They're like, "Ow, this guy." Yeah, so I made it into customs, and I was just not prepared. You don't even know how many times I made sure all my paperwork was right. And I'm the kind of guy that I am not super prideful. I'll ask somebody for help, and so I immediately was just talking to some of the Canadian people in the Vancouver gate. And I was just like, hey, like, do I have anything? And they're like, hey, don't worry, man. Like, you got everything. You wouldn't even have made it this far if all your stuff wasn't good. And so I was like, good. I get there late at night. I'm walking through customs, and there's this like pretty imposing lady sitting at the booth. And she's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm hunting. She's like, where's your gun? And I was like, oh my God, like just totally blew me off guard. I was like, I was like, I don't have one. She's like, well, I was like, I'm watching. I'm just going to go to observe. And she's like, you came all the way to Canada to observe? And I was like, yeah, I work for a podcast. And then they're like, what podcast? And I was like, Houndsman XP. She's like, never heard of it. Enjoy your time in Canada. And I was like,
okay. Why didn't you set her up and make sure that we've got another listener in Canada?
I know. Well, I was just like,
those numbers, Seth, those are rookie numbers.
I was just like, I just want to go. Like, I just want to get out of here. Anyway, so I got through there, and then I got to my room. I met one of the hunters from the Freedom Hunters group. His name is Jason, Marine, and he was in for a long time. I think he just retired recently. I didn't really want to bugger him with too many questions. I figured the people that want to talk to me will come and talk to me. So I just did the very casual introduction and then I went to bed. And next time we get to Smithers. It's a 14.5 hour drive, but if you fly, it's 1 hour. Planes are awesome. And the Canadian Rockies are just stunning. I just could not believe how, I mean, I'm used to big mountains, but they were all snow-capped, gorgeous mountains with these like really pristine and really, really uninhabited river valleys below. And
what size plane did you fly on?
I flew in a Bombardier, so it's a turboprop, like two on each side, 2 seats on each side, kind of small. Yeah. But I mean, the plane was all the way full, and I was so excited, you guys, because all the stress of getting there was gone. And I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I really like to talk to random people. And so so I sat next to this guy who was sitting next to me, and I leaned over to him and I was like, "Hey, what's Smithers like?" And he looked at me and he just growled at me in French and just looked straight ahead. And I was like, "Okay, never mind."
Darn Americans.
I know. I was like, "Oh, you can speak English." I know someone who's lying about speaking English. I live in New Mexico. Like, don't you dare do that. But anyway, so yeah, we get to Smithers, and the Babine Guide Outfitters crew was there to pick us up, and we just went straight into the mountains.
What was the name of the outfitter again?
Babine Guide Outfitters.
Okay.
And we are heading out to a place called Tukey Lodge. And I learned all this en route. So I was like, yeah, when we get there, you guys, it's just so picturesque. So before I preface all this, patrons, stay tuned. Literally everything I'm talking about, I have video of. When I went to Oregon, I was totally, Lauren's our social media person. I am kind of a Luddite, unfortunately, but I'm getting better. And so what I've learned is that you need a lot of footage to distill down into something good. So when I was in Oregon, I took a lot of footage and I only got about 5, maybe 10 minutes of good video out of that. Guys, the episode I'm making for the Patreon page is 57 minutes long. It's epic, tons of trailing action. So stay tuned. But what I meant by that is this view from our lodge was just breathtaking. Babine Lake is 140 miles long.
Wow.
And yeah, right. And so it's also like, I don't know, between like 3 to 1 mile wide. And so these lodges, this outfit was so professional, like so beautiful, so well taken care of. All their lodges were just like stunning. And I'm from New Mexico. Like I know ramshackle and I'm okay with it. I was just blown away at how unbelievably nice their grounds were taken care of. And they had a bunch of different cabins. So all of us hunters had our own room, which was great. I didn't know what to expect there. And yeah, it was just stunning. And of course, the first thing I did was get settled in and then immediately go find the dogs. And so I found the guy, Lloyd, who handles the hounds. And I pretty much introduced myself. A lot of people nobody knew I wasn't hunting. And when I explained I came all the way up there just to help out with the dogs and learn as much, all those guys were like, okay.
What?
Yeah. They're like, you just traveled like 3,000 miles to just watch dogs. And I was like, yep. And I'm really excited.
That is cool.
Yeah. So you guys feel free to chime in. I don't want to dominate this epic monologue. But it didn't take long for the action to start. The second I walked in to Tukey Lodge, I looked into their skinning shed and they had a wolf hanging up there. And I don't mean a wolf. I mean a wolf. This thing was 100-pound wolf. And I was like, oh my goodness. Because I'm used to Mexican wolves. And
right.
Like a big Mexican wolf, a big one weighs 55 pounds, right? They're like a coyote.
Yeah, Mexican wolf is thing. Like a Wisconsin coyote.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
And so I knew that. I mean, that's totally Bergman's rule. Like in wildlife, the farther north you go, the bigger bodied things get. And so I knew to expect that. And obviously, but man, when you see 100-pound wolf hanging up, you're just like, dang.
It puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Because our houndsmen in the Rocky Mountains are seeing those things all the time. and they're dealing with them every time they turn dogs loose. Or there's always, maybe not directly dealing with them, but knowing that they may have to deal with that.
Yeah, and obviously you guys, like, I don't have to deal with that problem, but when I saw that wolf on not even day one, on like minute one, it just hit me like a meteor that I'm like, this is what people are dealing with out here. Like, this is insane. This thing would eat you, like eat you, not me, not my dogs. You know what I mean? Like, this thing was massive. And so that the first thing I was thinking is like, man, it would really suck to hunt with dogs where this thing lives, you know?
Yeah.
And so they actually trap and hunt them pretty heavily there. And we had literally zero issues with wolves. We'll get there because I thought about it often. But yeah, they skinned out this huge wolf. The lodge was unbelievably beautiful. Everything was outfitted, so I didn't have to lift a finger. I just was helping out where I needed to be. But day 2 got started, you guys. And well, before I get there, and I'm not gonna, man, I don't really want to lay it out all out. You know what I mean? That could be a long time, but the dogs that they were using, that's what I thought was super cool. I always like to see the regional variations. And this is my first time bear hunting, like out of New Mexico. And the dogs they use there are like traditional hounds that you were thinking of, but they also are huge fans of Karelian Bear Dogs there. And I was super keen on figuring out how that guy works. And you guys, like, I'm not a super experienced bear hunter, but by the end of this trip, I get it. Like, that was super fun. And the bear density is crazy. So
how many bear trees did you walk to?
I walked up to 3 bear trees. We ran 5 bears, but as a whole, the group saw nearly 70. So there's no short. Yeah. So the group together saw around like 70.
4 days.
5 days. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So just driving the road, we saw 12.
Hunters? How many hunters were on this Freedom Hunters adventure besides
6
you?
hunters? 5 hunters and me.
Okay.
So yeah. Yep. No, false. 6 hunters and me. I got a special ticket because I wasn't hunting. So I was cheap and easy. That was my college name. So anyway, there were 6 hunters and they had obviously, 6 guides. I stuck with Lloyd. When I say Lloyd is like a badass of the Northwoods, every guide there, I spent a lot of time talking to the guides.
Is he the king of the North?
Dude, that everybody was like, everyone would take this like candor with me when I was talking to him, and they'd be like, dude, Lloyd's really hardcore and he really knows what's up. And like when all the guides say that in like a candid tone, they weren't joking. Lloyd is a badass. And like the way like the way he tracked, moved through there, like the way he was able to just navigate that forest. Like, I'm no wussy hiker. Like, I'm just going to say that right off the bat. I can hike with the best of them, but just, it takes practice to move through that kind of forest. The forest I'm used to is like, it can be dense, but this is dense on a whole nother level. Like the spruce trees are touching. The understory is this just nightmare of windfall covered with snow. So you can't really see the ground very well, and you fall through a lot and just like crush your ankles on all this fallen timber. And where there's no snow, it just illuminates how depressing the ground is. And so you just have this like tangle of windfall and debris everywhere, not to mention devil's club and other like terrible stinging nettles and stuff. And so the way he just like moved through all that was really impressive. And also his tracking ability was incredible. And he's a really knowledgeable trapper. So trappers know the wildlife better than anybody. And he taught me how they set lynx sets and wolf sets and like all kinds of sweet marten traps and stuff. And just, I could just like really see and respect this guy's decades of knowledge in this one area. That's kind of how I feel when I'm in New Mexico, but I'm not as old as him, and he hunts for a living. So he's on a whole nother level,
trappers, if you become a trapper, if you are a trapper, you just know that area and you know how all the wildlife commingles and moves around so much better than even if you were just a raccoon hunter, just a bear hunter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
and one thing, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to add, that's what I love about going and hunting new areas with new people. Just watching and observing and seeing how they do things. And you can tell the guys that are faking it, and you can tell the guys that have been there before and they know what's going on. I'm the guy that they turn around, look at, and faking it. That's what I feel like when I go. But when you're with those guys, those hunters that are so good at what they do, it looks effortless and the way they do things, and that's what I've always strived for, to get out there on the Houndsman XP podcast is, man, there's so much to learn from so many different people. And
Definitely.
when we start internalizing and thinking we're it, man, get out and take your blinders off, put your ego aside, and learn stuff. Learn stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is I know this sounds crazy, especially to the HXP audience or Lauren, people that really know me in person, but I really focused on having 2 ears, one mouth. So and Lloyd's a very soft-spoken person, so I didn't want to overwhelm him with my energy. And so I just stayed a lot more subdued and asked him questions, just kind of peered into his mind as best I could. And by the end of the week, we were really good friends, I felt. And I hung out at his house with him in a far more personal level. So I love making friends, and it was really easy. Especially quiet people like that, I think, and people that have been doing it for a long time, I think they really enjoy the freshness of having someone who's like super eager to learn, who's like a complete ally of what they're doing, and is also like really excited about what they're doing. When they reach that like mentor stage, I think it's really exciting to have a younger person who's just so into what they're doing. And he didn't say that outright, but he said that kind of in a roundabout way. And I've been told that by like David Church when I was in Oregon. So, I just kept the helpfulness at a maximum, always being available to help anywhere I could. And also just being super pumped, which is not hard for me at all.
Yeah. It was probably refreshing for them. A lot of the outfitters that I know, people are paying them. And so when they come to their outfit and their camp, they really don't look for ways to help. It's like this. You go to a restaurant, you're paying for a meal. You don't go back and cook it, and you don't carry it out for yourself.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times when outfitters get people in camp that are legitimately interested in what they're doing, it's kind of like, what's your angle? Or, hey, come back anytime.
Yeah. And so that I just wanted to not be like that. So I just wanted to be super duper helpful. And obviously I'm a dog guy, so I'm not afraid to get into the pens and grab dogs. And he only has 4 dogs. He has a great handle on all of them. So that made it really nice. They're really well trained. And I was really excited to see that Karelian in action. He'd been telling me good things about him. And I just had a hard time picturing what it was going to be like, because they don't trail.
How old was that dog?
5.
Okay, so it's not a litter mate to the one that I hunted with.
No,
that one was like 2.
Wait, you hunted with one?
Dallin has one.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So no, this one was 5, and his name was Gomer. He was everybody's favorite. First of all, he just had a different energy than the hounds, a different vibe, if you will. He was very, very exuberant. He kind of, Google what a Karelian Bear Dog looks like, but he just kind of looks like an overgrown Pomeranian, sort of. And he was super friendly and exuberant. And he kind of had a pet vibe to him, sort of, even though he's not. And they just hunt wildly different than the hounds. And I'm a guy who likes to combine the different strengths and weaknesses of a different like set of dogs hunting together. What a compliment to a bear pack! Holy smokes!
Tell us how they use that Karelian Bear Dog.
Yeah.
So is this 4 hounds plus the Karelian, or 3 hounds plus the Karelian?
Yes, 3 hounds and the Karelian Bear Dog. Okay. 4 dogs.
Okay.
This is how they use the Karelian Bear Dogs here in Canada. At least how Lloyd uses them. So the Karelian Bear Dog, as I understood it and as I saw, they don't have the endurance of a hound. That's the first thing that just blew me away. Like, I can get up on a high horse about my dogs being these like super athletes of the dog world, but you guys, we had a 9-hour race and the hound stuck with it the entire time. That is unbelievable. So the Karelian Bear Dog just doesn't have that kind of endurance. They have a super hot nose. Okay. They hunt by drifting the scent or smelling the bear in the air, literally air scenting the bear. And so they're kind of like a furry sight hound in a way. They sniff a super hot bear track and just, I mean, floor it into the forest. Like, I could not believe how fast Gomer moved through the forest. And he gets right up behind a bear, and he only opens when he sees the bear. So it is so cool to just be like, when you are listening out there and you just hear, oh, he sees the bear. And then when you look at your Garmin and you see that little purple arrow that is Gomer, that's 400 meters ahead of the hounds, like 500 meters ahead of the hounds, he's looking right at the bear. So it's like you see the hounds all stacked up, trailing and moving and pushing that track. And then you see this purple arrow like moving fast through the forest. That's Gomer and the bear. He's standing right behind the bear, barking at it the whole time. So it's kind of cool to be like, the bear's right there. The hounds are right there. And so like he followed this bear for like 3 hours until the hounds were able to catch up. And he's just standing behind this bear, barking at it the whole time. And so
do you think that speeds the bear up so that the hounds have to work harder to even try and get there?
I'm curious as well on that question. And then Seth has a technical difficulty with his microphone.
Yeah, so I'm like wondering, and he doesn't have to answer, but like I'm just kind of like rhetorically talking, I guess. It like, is the dog just kind of minding by you, and then it hears the hounds like opening up and knows that they're closer, so he runs in, gets a whiff of the scent, gets in there, and then jumps like way ahead on the track? I don't know. Seth is still trying to figure this out.
Well, I think it's foreign to us because we've never hunted with that style of a dog. You know, Seth was talking about scent, and he was talking about some of that stuff. You take a dog like the Karelian Bear Dog, and he's not a ground tracker like our hounds are. A hound's natural instinct is their head sets lower, and they're trying to find that scent from the shoulder down. Whereas a lot of the shepherds and spits and, you know, those types of dogs, they naturally have a higher headset. So it's something that we're not, as houndsmen, traditional type houndsmen, we're not real familiar with. And I was totally intrigued with that Karelian. The other is the other type dog is the one that...
The Leica?
There you go. Yeah, the Leica, the Siberian Leica. It sounds like something like that. Houndsman XP is very proud of our partnership with the organization Freedom Hunters. Freedom Hunters is a nonprofit organization that takes America's veterans hunting from field to field, from the battlefield to a field near you when you volunteer your time to take America's warriors hunting with you and your hounds. It's easy. Go to houndsmanxp.com, click on the partnership tab, and it will take you to Freedom Hunters. You can go direct to their website to make donations at freedomhunters.org. Support America's heroes. Let's pay it back. Visit Freedom Hunters at freedomhunters.org or go to houndsmanxp.com and you can find them on our website. From field to field. All right, so the question was, all right, so you get a bear track going. Is he dropping that Karelian with his hounds from the very beginning, or is he waiting for them to work out a cold track and then jump the bear and then send him?
It depends. So both, yes and no. So the Karelian will only rig if the scent is super sharp, super fresh, right? So if Gomer starts opening from the box, he just lets everyone go and they just take off. And the bear density is so high that we started a bear track. The bear just ran across the road and that we just let everyone out and they just go. And Gomer just flies ahead of the hounds and gets right on the bear. If it's a super cold track, he does not let him out. He'll hold him back until the arrow starts moving towards a road, and he'll drive up and he'll hold Gomer in his hands. And when the bear runs across the road, he goes, "Go get him!" And he drops him and he goes, and he takes off running. And it was so cool. Patrons, I have a video of him doing that. So get ready. The bear had just ran across the road, and he's like running out with Gomer in his arms, and he goes, "Go get him!" and just like lets him go, and he just takes off into the woods.
Has Gomer ever put enough pressure on a bear by himself to get that bear to tree?
The day I was there, no. And I asked if he's the case, and Gomer, he's not super gritty. He just yaps behind him. He thinks that maybe if the pack was bigger, it may be more intimidating, but he has a small pack. He likes to keep it small just so he has an easy handle on his dogs. And he just doesn't want to feed a bunch of dogs, really. So they're working. And I think he's very hesitant to put down. And again, this is after days of just kind of asking him millions of questions. And I wrote a bunch of stuff down so I could make sure I'd remember it all right. But he doesn't really turn out on cold tracks because the bear density is so insane. Why would you? Like, let's run a bear that just came through recently instead. So we turned out on all relatively hot tracks. We would just let him rig. And the first thing any amateur bear hunter needs to learn, you guys, is anytime a dog barks, that does not mean they're rigging on a bear. That was the first thing that I learned. The dogs would open, I'd be like, "Oh yes, like let's go." And then he's like, "No, it's just a moose." And I'm like, "Damn."
Did he check the track, or he just knew the way that his dogs were barking? It wasn't as legit.
Both, but he had one of his dogs. His name is Willow. She's really honest. And she was really good about not opening until she smelt a bear. And we let her out to start every track. And yeah, she's really legit. That was super cool. I got tons of footage of her starting tracks too. So she would just get a bear track going. And then we'd cut in. He has a blue tick named Chappie. Dude, Chappie is a beast. Chappie is an epic beast. He trails super fast. And to me, that's what a hound should sound like. I mean, he has that beautiful, loud, long bay, and it's just music to someone like me who lives in a quiet world. That is just amazing. And Chappie, he could just cover ground. And what was cool is he could hear Gomer barking when he got closer to the trail, and you could see him speeding up. As he would hear Gomer looking at the bear, he would start gaining ground on the track and moving much quicker than the black and tans. And he would get up on the bear with Gomer all the time by just listening to Gomer as like a homing beacon and just running down the track as quick as he could. And then he'd stop sometimes he'd overrun it, make a quick loss, turn around, figure it out, and then go again, which I thought was also incredible. But when we were hiking, at one point, our average speed was 1 mile an hour. That's how thick it was. Dude, Gomer was running through there at 15 miles an hour. So
what?
Yeah, dude,
that is crazy.
Flooring it through that stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know how he can move that quickly. It's a nightmare in there. And yeah, it was incredible. So the Karelian hunts with a super hot nose. And it makes sense. You know, I asked Lloyd this question. I said, how did you hunt here before Garmin's? Because the dogs would be 300 meters away. You can't even hear them. The forest is so thick. And he's like, well, you couldn't. We didn't. It was all farther south where the forests are more open. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But you can with the Karelians because they catch up to the bear super fast. And they only go after a bear that was there like an hour or less. So back in the day, they gain on that bear so quick that I could hear Gomer barking looking at the bear most of the time. Like you could listen carefully out the truck window and you could hear yep, 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 yep. And he's like a little machine gun, like walking behind that bear. And it was just so cool to be like, oh, damn, they see the bear. Like it was such a cool insurance policy to just know like when they see the bear. And I just thought that was really rad. The style is way different, but his big weakness is his distance. He really can't go more than about 2 hours, and he's like overheating big time. Yeah.
Those fluff balls.
Chris, you are muted, brother.
I was wondering too, like with how fluffy they are, like the collar, can they get it tight enough for like the prongs to even get there?
Oh yeah, you can definitely. Okay. Yeah, it just looks like a plush doll wearing like an orange GPS collar.
Yeah.
So how big a dog are we talking about here?
Gomer was about 50 pounds.
Okay, he looked bigger in your pictures.
It's because he's like 8 inches of fur.
Yeah.
If you shaved him down, he probably looks like a coyote. That would be my guess. He's surprisingly athletic, though. And I was blown away at the teamwork. But I'll be honest, and I'm not just saying this, I was more impressed with the hounds because you guys, like, that level of endurance is just insane. We had one race that was 9 hours. They had the bear in front of them for about 7 of those hours. And those dogs never stopped barking. And they never stopped following that bear.
That's a long time to be walking a bear.
Do you have the mileage on that race?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and look at my notes, but I think that whole day it was about 19. And through that forest, that is no joke.
Yeah.
And so they took him up this crazy cliff and they bayed the bear, and they had him bayed for, this is another thing that just blew me away. Where I'm from, where they hunt here, it's either done on horseback, mules, or horses. And there's really nowhere you can't go. Like, you can get cliffed out in some places in the Gila, but like for the most part, the Sacramentos, but like for the most part, it's totally fun. Like if you had a 2-hour walk, if you had a 2-mile walk ahead of you, you'd be like, cool, this is going to be a fun jaunt through the woods. And so that's what I'm calibrated for. The dogs had the bear bayed for about 2 hours, and Lloyd was like, no way, we're not going in there. It was 1.5 miles from where we were. There's no roads. It was just bushwhacking, and it's deep snow between ankle to hip deep snow. And he was like, no way, we're not going through that, because our luck, this is what's going to happen. We're going to spend an hour getting out there to them or more. And then the dogs are going to push the bear away because it's going to smell us and run. Or because we could tell it wasn't treed because it was bayed, because it was in this one spot. And then it would just move like 5 feet and then stop again, and then move like 10 feet and stop again. So he was like, no way, we just got to let him push him out of there. And I'm just like, jaw open. Like, I just could not believe that, you guys. Like, you just got to sit there and wait. And I'm like pins and needles tense, you know? And yeah, man, we had to wait like 2 hours until finally they got the bear moving again and pushed him out of this awful cliff country across this huge flat. And luckily by a road, we were able to like drive up and see the dogs. And the bear ran across the road. They were still on him, and then they crossed with him. And God, it was epic. I really don't know how else to describe it.
That's like the laurel thickets in the Appalachians. I don't know how it compares to what you're looking at. I'm envisioning what I saw in the UP while I was up there hare hunting, but down in the mountains in those laurel thickets and stuff, if they're getting movement out of the bear, there's no sense in charging off in there. You're not going to be able to make headway, and you're just going to burn energy. And by the time you get there, you're going to be behind. So if they're you're always trying to strategize. You're always trying to watch and see which way they're moving it or pushing or whatever.
Yeah.
And it could be slow. It could be a walking bay or whatever, but there's no sense in going full commando with a machete and trying to get to them, because you're just wasting your own energy.
And that was really hard for me to accept. Yeah.
What's that?
That was super hard for me to accept.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, let's go. Like, I'll just run the bear down. I'll catch him.
I used to do the same. I used to be the same way, Seth. I used to just be like, what are we standing here for? I didn't come here to listen, let's get in there. Let's go get it. You just can't. You can't do it.
You can't do it. We tried in a way, because one of the roads. So they that super epic race, they pushed the bear up into the high country, like way up into the mountains, and it was where all their dens are. And so Lloyd knows like all this country, and he was just like, okay, they pushed him up in this high area. They have him bayed. He's like, I think it probably went into a den. So we need to go up there and get the dogs. And so we went on this epic hike, and we were on a road between ankle and hip deep snow. It was so exhausting. And again, I'm not a weak hiker.
Snowshoes?
Dude, I was wearing my desert hiking boots, yo. It was horrible. And
why didn't you buy new shoes for this?
Listen, hear me out. Everyone that's shaking their head going, Seth, are you a noob? No, I hike for a living. Here's what happened. I
like the same boots you kicked a raccoon with.
No, I was wearing sandals. I was wearing these when I stepped on the raccoon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so no, what happened was I was expecting rain the whole time. And I did not expect us to be hunting at such high elevation. And I'm honestly, and I'm just going to be straight up, there was just an element of just kind of degaffing. Like, I was just like, I'm just going to deal with it. You know, I was 3 weeks before my trip. I'm not going to buy a new pair of boots and get all blistered up trying to break them in 3 weeks before my trip. I was like, I'm just going to deal with it. I'm just going to man up and deal with it. Wet feet. If you're complaining about wet feet, you're just being a little punk. Like, it's fine. However, hip deep snow is a lot different than just wet feet. And
you probably didn't have gators.
Like I was just going to say, you didn't have gators. Like, I got stuff before we went to Arizona for the Freedom Hunters hunt, and just fine.
Yeah. So I never even heard of gators before this. And so,
oh Lord, we've mentioned them before.
I live in a place that rains 8 inches a year. You know what I mean? You can't even find gators here. And so I was just like, whatever, I'm just going to deal with it. My wife was like, you're making a mistake. And I was like, what do you know, woman? No, I didn't say that. I was just like, yeah, you're probably right, but I'm just going to deal with it. So I did. And I didn't say anything. But patrons, stay tuned. If you like looking at crazy haggard feet, I took a picture of my feet after we got back to the truck from that hike. And
is that what Patreon is going to turn into, a feet pic thing?
It's just one clip. But it was gnarly. When the blood started returning, they were completely numb. My feet were just like stumps. I was just walking on numb stumps. And when I got back to the truck and the blood started returning to my feet, it hurt a lot. It really sucked. So, yeah. Anyway, that was the only time. Luckily, hunters leave a lot of stuff behind. And there was a perfect pair of broken in waterproof hiking boots that fit me perfectly. So it was
no kidding.
Bear providence. So that's what I wore for the rest of the trip.
Good.
Did anybody loan you some gators?
No, after that horrible snow hike, we just made sure to stay in the low country, and it wasn't a problem at all. Yeah. So it was just that one day that the cold feet really sucked. But anyway, yeah, it was a great time, and I have a huge love of bear hunting with hounds now. It was unreal. There was so much more that happened. Epic stuff. We treat a bear in this. They call them cottonwood trees. They look kind of more like an aspen to me, but they call them cottonwood, so I'm gonna call it cottonwood. We treated this bear in this cottonwood tree that's like 50 feet tall. And this tree is like one of the biggest trees I've ever come near. And Lloyd put his arms around this tree and he like barely made it like a quarter of a way around this thing's stump. And I was just like, this is crazy.
You're trees. What are trees? I don't know.
You have had to have been around bigger trees when you're back here in Kentucky. When you're in Kentucky,
maybe, but I didn't take notice of them because there wasn't a bear inside of them, dude.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And so it was amazing too. The last day was, man. Patrons, you're gonna love the video because like I was like. The last day, I wanted to make it more of like a first person or maybe even like a third person kind of narration of this entire race. We jumped, dude. Lloyd's such a beast. He was like, "There's going to be a bear at kilometer marker 26," and we drive right to it. Boom, the dogs start rigging immediately.
He had cameras out. He had cell phone cameras.
Oh, dude, I had my GoPro stuck to my head. I had a red mark on my head that lasted for like 4 days after my trip because I wore my GoPro like nonstop. And so I got GoPro footage of every walk up from the start to the end. I got GoPro footage of every shot when the bear coming out of the tree. It's all out there. So anyway, Lloyd's like, the bear's close. I know he is. He was probably out here grazing when the dogs were rigging and he ran into the woods. So we turn everyone loose because the whole box is just like boom, 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 like shaking. And so
you had a box shaker.
Dude, that was legit. My heart could have just jumped out of my mouth right there. Like it was so exciting. So he just opens the doors and the dogs just storm out. The hounds instantly find the trail and Gomer is just gone. Like he just like bolts into the forest like full speed. And within about 20 seconds, he's already barking. He's right behind the bear. And the race never got farther than 300 meters from the road and paralleled along the road, kind of like our ditch race, Lauren, how the coon was just going back and forth. That's how the bear was. It would like run down the road like a mile, turn around and come back and like work its way across. And I could hear everything. At one point, the race was like 20 yards from the road. And so I could hear the bear like crash by, and then you could hear Gomer like pitter pattering behind him. And then you'd hear the hounds coming. They'd pass. And then we'd like creep down the road farther and then like listen to it all over again. It was incredible. Like
you're so hyped up. I love watching you like this excited.
I know, it's fun. It's fun just watching you tell this story.
So I'm sparing the listeners my exuberant acting, but like, yeah, there's just no way to. I was leaning over the truck. I like set out of the truck and set on the window ledge, and I like leaned over the roof, had my GoPro on and my cell phone, and I was filming this, and you can like hear the hounds. And I was like, Seth, don't talk, because like every time you talk when you're filming, your voice is super loud, and I was like, they see the bear, like all super quiet so that it didn't like overpower the hounds like barking as they run by. Oh man, it was incredible.
I love it's like a train like coming by. And
yeah,
like you're hearing like maybe there's one car that's like really wonky and has like cars in it that's louder than the rest of them or something. It's like, yeah, it's like a train race. It's crazy.
What's cool too, Lauren, I learned so much from your dogs too, is like I had a lot of time to learn, and obviously since you're a friend, it was a lot more casual, but it's incredible how quickly you can learn each individual dog's vocal like language, right? Like every hound sounds different, and every hound has that unique vocabulary of like what's happening in front of him. And it was amazing how quickly I could pick up on each hound of the three and be like, oh, that's Willow, oh, that's Tui, oh, that's Chappie. And what I thought was really rad is that, and I learned this with your dogs first, but then I was able to extrapolate that to these dogs quickly. Their bark changes from every stage of the race. And so what was really cool is like, and then spicing Gomer into the pack also gives you a lot more validation and training to that ear, because the hounds would start this cold trail and start baying, and then they'd be moving down the track, and you could see how fast they were moving on the Garmin. And then when they saw the bear, I mean, just like everything changed, and the energy level just explodes. You know, the sound of their bark, especially that blue tick, it almost has like a vibrato to it. Like when he sees the bear, it's like,
yeah,
I don't know, it's like a wobble almost.
Cedar gets like that.
Yeah, and man, Chappie, he sounded like a roar, like when he barked, and when he'd see that bear in the video, I was filming with my cell phone and the GoPro, and I was like, they see the bear, like I was all excited,
like
I
duh, buddy,
yep, came out of my voice, you know, because when you could see on the Garmin, Lloyd had one of those Garmins that linked to your tracking device, your handheld, and it has a screen that mounts to your truck.
It's called a
drive track.
Yeah, that. And so you could see all the action happening.
Who is this guy?
It was amazing to have that, because it really immersed the non-hunting guys that don't really know anything in the hunt. They can,
it's way easier than like trying to pass a handheld around and be like, see, and then you're looking at like a tiny little screen and a tiny part of the forest. Yeah.
And so it was really cool to observe that happening. But what I was doing is, man, and again, it's just who I am. But like, I would be like leaning outside the truck and I'd be listening to the action. Then I would like peek in, see the screen, see what's happening, and then just like pop up and listen again to like.
I wish people could see your body movement.
Yeah.
That was so awesome.
Figure out what was happening, like what I'm listening to, what's happening. And it was so cool to just like have that combination of hound and Karelian. Yeah, man. When the hounds find Tui and Willow are litter mates, they're two black and tans, and they're unlike any black and tan I've ever seen. All the black and tans I've ever seen are like really tall and lean, like almost like a pointer. Like they're really super athletic looking. These black and tans were like bricks. They were just like big tanks,
square dogs.
You know? Yeah, they were like really, really heavy, not fat, just like big.
Yeah.
Muscular and heavy boned. And
the male almost looked like a Rottweiler with like a jellyfish face. You know what I mean? Just like baggy skin. And so they trailed really slow, which was crazy. They didn't really make losses very much, but they were stacked up to each other, and they just moved on the Garmin as like two arrows, just like perfectly together.
So like,
and then
Gomer's like the forward insurance policy, and they're like the backward insurance policy. Not backwards, but like if Gomer's not there, they're their insurance policy to make sure that track is right.
Yeah, and since Gomer was running so fast, sometimes he would overrun the track, and you would see him like make a loss and come back, because it's all by air. He's winding it all. He's drifting the track. And it was really cool to see the bear run across the road, and we just sit there and patiently wait. And you would see Gomer would always be running on the downwind side of the track. and he'd be like running with his head up and he's just flooring it through the forest. And it was just so cool to see. Anyway, so Chappie was kind of in between the two. The blue tick, he would move the track much quicker than the black and tans. And I think I know he was keying into Gomer's voice. Every time Gomer would open up with this like barrage of yappy barks that he makes, Chappie would floor it up the track. And then when Gomer was silent, he would start grinding along like a normal hound and then move down quickly when Gomer barked. And I really liked that brain. You know what I mean? I really thought that was like really intelligent of Chappie to do that. And I was like,
people have seen my boxer, Roxy, the rig dog, but she does the same thing. When I take her coon hunting, when I first started hunting, she just throw a fit at the house. I had to start taking her, and then it became like a novelty thing. People would be like, "You got a boxer in the truck?" Like, yeah. And then I started taking her bear hunting, but she'll do the same thing. She'll take off with the hounds event at the initial turn loose. She'll be gone maybe 4 to 5 minutes, and then she'll come back and she'll hang out. And she's constantly listening. And then, boom, once the dogs locate, she knows when the dogs locate in tree because she leaves me. And then she meets me at the tree. I don't see her again until I get to the tree. And she'll be at the tree with the rest of the dogs. It's amazing what these dogs can learn.
Absolutely. And what was cool is when we caught Gomer occasionally to let him rest because he was so hot and tired. What was really cool was that one time they had the bear at a bay, and the two black and tans were slow, and Chappie was ahead and was up right behind the bear. We like got up as close as we could, and we just let Gomer out, and he just, I mean, barrels up to the tree. And the speed at the most astounding thing, you guys, is how quickly a dog can move through that forest. And he got up to the bay, and as soon as he arrived, that extra pressure of just one more dog got that bear moving. And that was cool because that's what we needed. It was just holed up in a horrible place. And it was
Cleve Dwyer did that. We did that podcast with Cleve on the dynamics, putting together a pack, and he calls those dogs that, stay in the back, his anchor dogs. When everything else blows up and maybe there's a track loss or whatever happens, they're slow and steady, bringing up the rear. They're going to get it figured out and get everybody lined back out. And we're here to catch bears.
Yeah. I had to explain to like people in West Virginia that I was fishing with, so they weren't hound hunters, like about my pack and why I have so many dogs and all the parts that they play. I'm like, well, it's kind of like putting together a hockey team or like a soccer team. And I've got my right wing and my left wing and my goalie and my center, and they all play their part.
Yeah. It was really cool to see that teamwork. And that's the beauty of dogs. They're a team amongst themselves, and then you add our element into it of giving them a hand with our like superior intelligence. I think it's just a beautiful thing. And you look in that forest, and you can't even imagine there's a bear there. There's a bear right off the side of the road, and you would have missed him. Yeah, there's a bear right there on Chris's screen looking at me, a cane bear. Yeah, it was so awesome. And we took one of our warriors with us, and his name was Matt. And I recorded with him, but I had some mic issues that I didn't even realize. And so I'm going to re-record everyone, but he was super insightful. He's a passionate elk hunter, and he really wanted to come with the hound crew. And he had a super exciting day with the dogs. And it was really cool to kind of like see that light kind of turn on with somebody. And one of the things even though I'd said this like 15 times, everybody thinks you just drop the tailgate, they run out there and magically tree a bear in like 10 minutes.
Every time. They think it happens super easily.
And yeah, he was there for our first bear we treed was 3-hour race. The second bear was 9 hours. So the dogs did 12 hours of hunting that day. And he was just floored at how difficult hound hunting actually is, especially in a place like that.
I don't get that mindset that certain groups of hunters have when they come out and they talk about hound hunting not being fair chase, but they're perfectly
or us
happy,
being lazy,
but they're perfectly happy getting a side-by-side ride out to a tree stand and sitting over a barrel full of Twinkies to shoot a bear. And that's fine. If that's your gig, I'm not knocking you for it. All I'm saying is, unless you've followed hounds on races like Seth just talked about, keep your trap shut. You have no idea what you're saying.
I want to interject one more time with something else that really blew me away. So
yeah, absolutely.
Lloyd did not use shock collars, which I found really interesting. He only uses the T5s without the shock ability.
Yeah.
And the reason he says that is he's like, I'm just not comfortable shocking a dog that's out of my sight. He's like, I'm not comfortable shocking a dog. Lloyd was very humble.
For one thing, they're e-collars, and you're training and you're sending stimulation to correct bad behavior. We're not shocking dogs.
Right. Yeah. Nomenclature error. I apologize. So, yeah. I mean, he's
trying to change the culture here, Seth.
Yes. My apologies, world. It's a training aid that I also use often. My dogs are huge wussies, so if you can use it on my dogs, any dog can use it. So here's the thing. Lloyd has not been running dogs very long. And I really admired him for his humble honesty, but he's just like, I'm not there at that point where I feel like I can make those calls at long range to stem them off a track. And so he's like, it's much easier for them to just come back. And so one thing he does, and this really impressed me immensely, both of the dogs and of him. In that 9-hour race, the dogs took the bear across another road, and we just couldn't keep up. Even on the road in the snow, we just could not keep up. It was just too hard going, and the dogs are just moving too quickly, even 8 hours in. And so what we did is we intersected where the dogs crossed the snowy road, and we just stomped around there, walked around a bunch in that little area on the road, and then we got on our track, and we walked out exactly how we walked in. And he's like, we're going to give them an out track, because if they followed their own track, hounds also amazing when they're lost. They just follow their own out track back to come back when you turn them out. That is incredible. And I saw that
as puppies.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's how they learn to track. Is usually going backwards on their own or some other dog's track.
Yeah, that was amazing. I saw it happen all the time. But if they would have followed their out track, they would have had 10 miles to go to where we turned them out through like horrible steep country. Or they could have followed our out track and had only 1.5 miles to get back to the truck. So we were, and Lloyd was like, we just got to leave them. We just got to let them do their thing. They will give up, and if not, we'll just leave them out overnight and come pick them up, which I also admired of him. He wasn't freaking out. The Karelian Bear Dog could survive in like -5 million degrees, and the hounds were really hairy too, so they could do it. But it was summer, right? So they're fine. So we leave, go back to the truck. We're watching the Garmins. Eventually, and luckily for us, they give up relatively quickly, only 9 hours into the chase. They finally give up. They'd been behind the bear for 6 hours, and they start coming back out on their out track. And as soon as they hit the road...
Backtrack.
Yeah, what'd I say, out track?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, they're backtrack. Yeah, so when they get on their backtrack back to the road, first one there is Gomer, and you can see him like start kind of milling around, and then his arrow just flooring it down our track. And I was like, yes, good boy, Gomer. And then Willow came up, same thing. The hounds got there at all the same time, and they all kind of milled around, and then they just took our out track, and they followed it all the way back to the pickup. And that was so cool. Like, I just could not believe how relieving and how cool that is, that they're like, wait, the humans are right here. Let's just follow them out instead, and instead of taking their track. So they came all the way back.
That kind of happened to me in Colorado. So I think it was another podcast, was like, well, what did you learn about your dogs? And I'm like, well, just learn to trust your dogs. Like, they'll end up at the road, or they'll end up back at the truck or whatever. Like, they'll figure it out. That dog he's got I don't even know what that dog's name is.
It's tough.
It's tough. Chris has got Tough out. He's showing out his new dog, and his screen name right now is Yogman. I think Chris may be converting here.
Yeah.
Are you becoming a terrier guy, Chris?
I do like this terrier a lot.
That's something I'd really like to experience next. But I am totally blown away at how fun tree dogs are. I'm going to be very honest. I loved it. It was amazing. I
want to talk about like the Freedom Hunters part of it. Obviously, Freedom Hunters put our hunters in a premier spot. And how did you have any conversation with Lloyd about or the outfitters about their experience with Freedom Hunters or any of that part of it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I did. And first of all, Lloyd said that the group that we were with was one of the best groups he had. And I agreed. Everyone there was super cool. Everyone was respectful, nice, and helpful. And they all were, pleasant people. No one was, crappy. But Lloyd said that, they really enjoy teaming up with Anthony. And, Lloyd is really soft-spoken, so I didn't want to pry into him too much on everything. But, he said that he really enjoyed teaming up with Freedom Hunters and giving these opportunities to people that otherwise would never have this chance. And that hunt in British Columbia is really uniquely suited for that clientele. It's high action. It's accessible if you're hunting spot and stalk. So it's accessible, particularly to wounded warriors. There was a guy who had one arm with a crossbow, and he was able to get a bear with one arm, which was like incredible. And so, it's just a great way to. Several of our hunters in our group were all new hunters; they'd never hunted before ever.
Really?
And like a lot of the guys were super experienced hunters, and they're like, "It sucks for you because you just started up here." You know what I mean?
No kidding. So how many had never hunted before? Do you think? Two of them. Okay.
Two have never hunted before ever.
Did they mention why they chose?
Did they know
to get
how to
with...
shoot a gun?
Yes, knew how to shoot a gun. And yes, mentioned one of them was really nice. I am so sorry, buddy. I cannot remember your name right off the bat. I have to go back. But he's just like, I just want to get more in touch with my food. And he's like, I just want to be more connected with my food. And America has such awesome opportunities to hunt. And so he was just getting in for the draw this year. And then Freedom Hunters called him. And so he didn't even know that was going to happen. And then when Freedom Hunters reached out to him, he was like, oh my gosh, like, of course. And what an awesome learning experience too, because he got an outfitter to take him out for his first time. So you could watch, a perceptive person could watch and learn and see a lot of the mannerisms and behaviors of your guide and emulate that when he heads out on his own this year. And every
Freedom Hunters adventure is with experienced hunters, and everyone that I've been on, people have been very receptive to, the hunters have been very receptive to teaching and talking about what you're doing and things like that. So for our veterans out there, if you're a veteran and you're listening to this podcast, you can apply at freedomhunters.org and fill out the application. Your name will go in a database. And as an adventure comes up that Anthony and he and I will talk about, the demands of the hunt, the style of the hunt, things like that. That's what we do with Freedom Hunters on these hound adventures, is we help coordinate. We don't want to put someone in a bad situation for them. So we always talk about, let's talk about the dynamics. Let's talk about the demands. Let's talk about the capabilities. Certain hunts, it's very difficult to put someone in there that has disabilities or, physical challenges that are going to hinder their experience, So we try to do that every time. But you go to freedomhunters.org and you fill out an application. If you want to host an event, it's just as easy. Contact me or you contact Freedom Hunters at freedomhunters.org and say, hey, I want to do one. I want to host some veterans.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying, if one thing everyone's going to learn about me, if I don't like something, I just don't talk, which is weird to imagine, but I cannot speak highly enough of Babine Guide Outfitters. They were just, the professionalism was just unbelievable. The amount of skill processing the bears, everything was salted and turned out beautifully. I sat down and learned a lot from them because I'm not really good at skinning carnivores. And so they also, handled all the meat, but the cooking was excellent. The atmosphere is excellent. I'm going to return to go salmon fishing with my wife.
Really that's cool.
Yeah. So they host trapping. They guide trappers. They guide, they do like a trapping outfitting guide thing. And then they also do salmon fishing. Then I caught my first, okay. Everyone can laugh at me right now, but I've caught only 2 fish in my entire life before I went to Canada. One time I caught a catfish, super duper drunk. And
the catfish was
barehanded or on a line?
On a line.
Because
I didn't know fishing was anything but just like throwing a stinky chicken liver in the water and catching a catfish. You know what I mean? And then you can't eat them where I live because they're so polluted. So you just let them go, right? And then I caught a rainbow trout when I got I have 2 degrees. My first degree is in fish biology, and I used to work for the Apache Nation and working for their like fish restoration program of native fishes. And I went fly fishing with one of the fish biologists I worked with. And I cast my fly in. This is in a really virgin creek that no one ever fishes in, so the fish are really dumb. I throw my fly in. I caught a rainbow trout that was like 4 inches long, but I didn't even know it. And I kept whipping my fly like back and forth, and there was a fish on my fly. And the guy that was with me, he was an Idaho dude. He was from Idaho. He's like, "There's a fish on there." I was like, "What? No!" And I slapped it back down on the water. He's like, "Pop!" Like swam away. So those
and you're trying to restore native fish, and you're catching rainbow trout.
No, that's what we're removing them, son.
Yeah,
so that one got a whiplashing doom. You know what I mean? But anyway, so we went fishing, and I caught a 22-inch lake trout. That was rad.
Yeah.
And then I caught 3 rainbow trout just from the dock, just like casting in my night crawlers. We had a great Canadian worm hunt where we caught some night crawlers. That's way harder than you think, catching night crawlers. And I caught a magnum night crawler, guys. I got a grip and grin with him and everything. Super magnum. And so I caught a rainbow trout with him. So anyway, yeah, it was I caught more fish in one day than I'd caught in the past 32 years of existence. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Did you eat any of them?
Yeah, so that's the thing. You were talking about a fish fry earlier.
Yeah.
Dude, yes, that's my first time ever having fresh fish too. Straight out of the water.
No
Lloyd's
kidding.
A beast. Yeah, dude.
That is so cool.
Who eats fish here? There's only like there's no standing body of water around me for 60 miles in any direction.
I'm not dissing you for it. Easy there, Trigger.
I had fresh fish.
It's cool that you got so many cool first time experiences, man.
I had fresh fish maybe the same time you were eating fresh fish. So we were maybe eating trout at the same time in different locations.
Yeah, it was it was so delicious. I mean, Lauren, you know this, but I'm the least picky person in the history of the world. You could have served me like dumpster marmot or something, and I would have been like, "Yep, let's eat it." But it was just so delicious. Have you guys ever eaten a ling cod before?
Never.
No.
They're called also burbot, but they're like a bottom dwelling catfish-like burbot, but they're not really a catfish.
It lives in the ocean?
No, freshwater.
Oh,
okay. They live in the lake. And they have this like very mild, tender white flesh, and they're really highly prized. They are delicious. And you just like put this like bottom dwelling hook obviously on the bottom of the lake, and you just leave it overnight, and then you roll up all these ling baits and you catch ling cod, and they are amazing. And it was really cool to have really badass guides because they can process the fish quickly. It was really cool to watch Lloyd break the fish down. And I was just learning, and then he fried them up right there. I caught it. And then an hour later, we all ate it. It was really cool. It was really cool. It was a total first experiences. And it was awesome to be in the company of such awesome veterans. You guys, Freedom Hunters is putting on these amazing experiences for people, no matter what level of hunter you are. If you're a beginning hunter, like a person who's literally never hunted before, or some of these guys have been hunting for decades.
Yeah.
Freedom Hunters gets these people out to experience something brand new and lets some dorky little nerd from New Mexico run around with them.
Experience of a lifetime. That's
Freedom Hunters, you rock. Everybody. Anthony, thank you so much. I can't wait for the next one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've never been on a bad adventure with Freedom Hunters. We always have a good time. And like I said earlier, all you got to do is go to freedomhunters.org and either get involved and get these veterans. I mean, I've literally had veterans tell me at the end of the weekend, it's like, this is the best thing that I've done in 6 months.
I heard that from every person there. We had a candid talk. I tried to have a candid talk with every one of them. And every one of those veterans said that this was one of the most refreshing things that they had done in a long time. Yeah, they come back to a lot of times, and I don't want to make it sound like veterans are victims. They're not. They're not victims. It's a deal where when you come back from a deployment,
and all of a sudden you're separated from all the people that you spent the last year of your life with and had so many experiences with. Who do you share that with? You can't go to the family cookout and talk about the IED that exploded and expect people to understand that. So who do you talk to about it? There's nobody for you to share that with. And so you internalize and you feel like you have nothing in common with other people. So getting these veterans out to experience things like this is so valuable. It's something that is easy to do and we can all do it.
I took great joy in just watching the camaraderie among the 6 veterans talking to each other. I didn't say a peep. I just sat there and listened. It was really cool. Great stories. And you could tell that there was a lot of warmth and, of course, a lot of the inter-service joking. I heard a lot of jokes I'd never heard before. A lot of them are really good, too.
Were they all U.S. servicemen or was it like Canadian servicemen, too?
There can be both for this group, but this was all American.
Okay.
Good Very job, cool. Seth, man. I appreciate you going up and representing the Houndsman XP and Freedom Hunters on this adventure.
Thank you.
I mean, I knew you'd do a great job, and I knew you'd eat it up, and I knew you'd have great stories when you came back. So,
well, I'm glad I delivered on those. I was just doing me to the maximum, and man, it was just a trip of firsts, and I was definitely very much aware of that and trying to,
We could talk for hours, but I got 2 questions. Yep. Did you see any grizzly? Did you see any grizzly?
I did. I saw a grizzly. I saw a grizzly across the lake. And what had happened was after we had harvested a bear, we, gutted the bear and removed it from the forest, brought it to the boat. We got back to the boat. We got back to the lodge. I looked across the lake and about 15 minutes had passed. And this about, I don't know, Lloyd estimated it to be between 600 and 800 pounds. This huge grizzly bear walked out and walked straight to the gut pile and just started devouring the guts.
Wow.
Like 20 minutes after we left. So it was kind of creepy to be like, there was a grizzly bear right there the whole time. And
kind of sitting back watching.
Big nope for me.
Dude, they are so intimidating.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Big nope.
Yeah, so yes, I did get to see a grizzly, and one of our hunters got to see a grizzly bear right on the side of the road. I saw lots of grizzly tracks. Patrons, stay tuned. I posted a picture. I got a size 10.5 foot, and I put my foot up next to a grizzly track that's bigger than my foot. And Lloyd was like, that's a big bear.
Yeah. Yeah. The other question is, did you see any signs of Bigfoot?
My friend Darren wasn't there, so no Sasquatches to be seen. My friend Darren is probably one of the hairiest people I've ever known in my life. And
that's where all the old Sasquatch videos came from, up there in that northwest country.
Yeah.
Apparently,
southern Canada.
Apparently, there was a shirt at the gift shop in West Virginia that said "Gone Squatching." So I don't know. Maybe
West
someone
Virginia
needs
Squatch.
Yeah, apparently it's a thing.
It's like a East Coast New Mexico tweaker brethren just skittering through the woods.
Yeah. Well,
so
again, Seth, thanks for coming back and sharing the stories. We need to wrap this one up, and thank you, Freedom Hunters, for doing everything you do, but then also inviting us to tag along.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Freedom Hunters. You guys are awesome.
All right.
Looking forward to hearing on Patreon.
Oh yeah. Tune into Patreon. I've been plugging Patreon on the podcast lately, and Seth is working hard. You can reach out to Seth if you're having any problems on Patreon.
Yes, reach out to me.
Yes, that's seth.houndsmanxp@gmail.com.
You can also find me on Facebook Messenger. I reply well there too.
Yeah, and you're putting together all kinds of. I mean, we got a bunch of cool stuff coming. We're putting together great prize packages for semi-annual drawing. Pretty sweet.
And stay tuned, guys. The Canada episode on Patreon is almost an hour long, so there's lots and lots of footage in there.
Yeah, you bet. All right, well, guys, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, you follow your hounds, and I'll follow mine.